Hey guys, Philosopher here, and I've got a pretty important video today. I know it's been a little while since I made one, and the first question most of you are asking is, where the heck have you been? And I will just say I have been busy with real life stuff. I have been extremely busy with some things with work and family. Also of a tragedy that is a mass shooting that unfortunately hit a little too close to home for me, and a number of other things that have kept my attention away from Marvel Strike Force. But it's also fair to say that I have been less fired up about Marvel Strike Force, and that's part of the reason why I want to make this video, because I was actually sitting down today to make some videos because I've actually been meaning to for a little while now that I'm finally winding down. I've had a holiday weekend. I had a birthday weekend. I'm like, okay, let's sit down and make some videos. Oh, I don't know about the Darkhold infographic that I was supposed to get out last week. And I feel kind of like this guy. If you ever watch this with Community, I'm literally coming back to, I've been just sort of, doing some stuff in the game, and it's been insane to see my mentions, the DMs, the comments on my Discord. People are enraged with good reason. So if you haven't seen this meme, this is the guy who comes in with pizzas and from Community, and this is what he sees. This is basically the state of MSF right now, and with good reason. And I know people are angry for a couple of reasons, and they really have a lot to do with one another. One is there's an offer that was sold that basically gave everyone the entire monthly event for free. So there's some people who spent pretty small amount of money who, for on top of what they were supposed to get, basically they don't have to do anything all month long, which sucks for the rest of us who have to grind out stuff and do a whole bunch of stuff in the game, because to keep up with the milestones, because let's face it, most of us who do, like me, who have jobs, lives, family, etc., we don't hit every milestone because we just don't have time. And usually the cost to skip that stuff is pretty expensive, and Scopely, by mistake, made it very easy, very cheap. They also made it so that people who got this offer got a big advantage because they got to use all those resources now when we're just about to have the Rogue event, right? So a lot of folks are gearing up for Rogue, excited about Rogue. And the people who bought this offer essentially get to use all those resources now. I get it. It's everyone should be pissed off. Another reason why people are pissed off is the community manager, Archangel, the new community manager. And I have some thoughts I'm gonna give you on Archangel, and then I'm gonna get to some comments he made about me in particular, and I'm gonna give you a peek behind the scenes at where that came from. So first of all, let me just say something. I have an unpopular view about Archangel. I actually think Archangel is a great thing for us, and here's why. Archangel, if you haven't heard, is the new community manager, and he has a lot to say. He goes on Discord and says a whole lot of things. He actually there's a video I'm going to link below from Boylon, in which he collected a lot of comments from Discord. I don't agree with his take on everything, but I thought he did a really nice job collecting the comments and providing his point of view, which I do respect on him. One of them is regarding me, which I'll bring up in a minute, but there's the links below. But Archangel basically spends hours on the MSF Discord responding to people's questions and saying a lot of things that kind of reveal his views on the game, and basically are dismissive towards people. Some of them, I think people came off as rude or basically suggested that tough luck to a lot of folks, and seemed kind of tone deaf. Here's what I'm going to say to you guys about this, and here's the reason why I'm going to take the unpopular view. This guy's actually a great thing. This guy replaced Cerebro. And I actually personally dealt with Cerebro a lot for a long time, for many, many months as a content creator. And I even had him do a video on this channel. I've always gotten along with him. I've always been respectful. He's been very, respectful towards me. But that guy was impossible to reach. I would have had an easier time getting trying to find Biggie and getting him raised from the dead and bringing him onto my channel than to actually get comments from Cerebro at times. Like, he was very difficult to reach. He often did not respond when I had direct questions or feedback. He would at times, like on the Envoy Discord, just disappear for weeks, months on end. And that, to me, I think was part of it was he was busy, he had a lot of responsibilities, but part of it's a deliberate strategy. You know, people like Archangel and Cerebro are called community managers. And you know what? They are there to manage us. Cerebro is a corporate spokesperson. He's not like the CEO. He's not some big shot making the decisions. He's a fairly low-level guy whose job was basically to say a bunch of stuff to us to keep us continuing to play their game and spending money on their game. And so they would screw up, and he would say very little, and then he'd come out with some vague thing, we're concerned and we're looking into it. And then they would be like, a one sentence thing, here's the compensation. And then he'd engage a little bit, but he wouldn't engage a lot, right? You'd get a few cryptic comments. They were always very diplomatic, very carefully constructed. And I appreciate what he's doing, because as a lawyer, I am paid a lot of money to carefully draft statements on behalf of clients, so I get what he's doing. But here's the thing with this Archangel guy. I know I've talked for hours with Archangel since he got on board, literally for hours with this guy. I've given him lots of thoughts and lots of feedback. He's constantly all over the place. He's talking to all of you on the Discord. This guy's basically just like one of you. He literally was some guy he was literally on my Discord and in my Twitch chat. Like, he's basically literally one of you guys that just got plucked out of nowhere. He's clearly not a PR professional, and he's basically just talking whatever comes to mind. He's just telling you. I don't think what he's saying is positive. I think I agree with many of the comments that what he's saying is out of touch, rude, etc. I agree with all of that. But I think that's what Scopely really thinks behind the scenes anyway. I think that Scopely's answer to this crisis with the milestones is they don't want to give us the stuff that everyone else, that this group of people got for free. They don't want to give that to the rest of us, because then they would lose money. That's what this is all about. I mean, if they gave all of us everything that was in those milestones, that would cost money for Scopely. So they don't want to do it. And they're not going to do it. And that's the bottom line, because the characters that, some of the stuff that they got that they didn't compensate us for is stuff that, is valuable and that people might buy offers for. And in addition, they're probably concerned that if they just gave us all the milestones, not just a small group, but the rest of us, we would do less in the game. We wouldn't be obsessed about their game all month. Maybe we would switch to other games, or we'd get less addicted, or whatever they are thinking. And so from my perspective, Scopely is just giving us the middle finger on this, regardless of what this guy says. And so it's better to have a guy out there who's just for the public face of them, just saying exactly what comes to his mind and being honest about it, versus some guy who's deliberately like ignoring us and saying nothing because that's his like clever management of us. This guy is not like some clever PR manager. He's literally just some guy who's played this game a lot and they plucked out of it, who's very excited about the job, but frankly, probably could use help on his PR and, word crafting skills. He could use some of Cerebro's craftiness, but I actually kind of like the fact that there's just a low BS element to this guy. Like, we know Scopely is a high BS company. There's just like a high BS level with that company. And I actually like that this guy he's just basically giving us at the time, he'll just give you the middle finger to your face, as opposed to doing it through some, ignoring you or some frilly language. So let me respond to this comment. I had a number of people tag me because they're like, okay, Archangel burned you. He took you down, philosopher. Actually, he did not. Okay. But what he's referring to in this comment. So he says, funny thing is my cluster doesn't have room for anyone. Don't believe the loudest voices every time, bro. Because he said, see, above this, he's responding to somebody saying people are losing time or taking time off. And he's, and so when Archangel said, don't believe the loudest voices every time, bro, he's referring to me because it's well known that I have stepped down from the hardcore alliance, Pants of Hulk, that I was an officer in. And I am not spending nearly the amount of money that I used to spend in the game. I'm spending a tiny fraction of what I spend in the game. And that's because I'm unhappy with what Scopely's done with the game. So he says here, here's the thing. Games change and not everyone is going to like it. This game used to be get these characters and get this legendary. I like the Apocalypse and monthly events better myself. Okay, I don't, but that's fine. I don't like this system. And then he says, but take people like Philosopher. He doesn't like that he can't predict the future anymore with the game, so his joy has gone down. It's the way of games when they shift. But dude, after seeing the Horseman teams, OMG, I'm drooling. Okay, he's not taking me down, but what he's referring to is something very specific that I told him. And I'm going to reveal it to you in this video. So I will just say, I had the opportunity after Archangel became community manager to provide feedback to the devs. It's not the first time I've done so. I've provided extensive feedback to the devs on many occasions. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I told this Archangel guy, which is no one ever listens to what I have to say. I mean, they do on little things around the edges. If I'm like, this new character sucks, that you've made it, if you don't improve it this way, no one's going to buy it. Okay, they listen to that stuff. But like the things that really matter for players, they don't listen to me. So I'm like, this is a waste of time, but I will stay up late and type up a long email of my thoughts. So I'm going to go through that and tell you exactly what I told him and what he's referring to here. I'm not going to go through everything in the email. It'll take forever. We don't want to have a 50-minute video. It was pretty long. And so here I basically walked through 4 different things that I think it was 4 that I thought was a problem with the game. So one of them is screen time. You guys have seen me talk about that on videos. I'm telling Scopely directly the same thing that I tell you on my videos, which is the amount of time required to play this game is far too high for a mobile game. I don't think you understand your core audience. The people who spend money on your game are often middle-aged professionals who have more money than time. They don't want to spend several hours a day staring at their phone. They're looking for a game they can pick up here and there when they have the time to do so. The amount of time that your game requires at high levels is ridiculous. Players have to pretend to go to the bathroom during work meetings or date night so they can fulfill their duty to an online alliance. It makes the game feel like a second job. The worst aspect of MSF screen time is that there are some game modes that require you to be in the game at specific times. If your arena payout time is 5 p.m. and your kid's soccer game's at 5 p.m., you lose out. At high levels, Alliance War requires everyone in the Alliance to be online when the war begins, and then a key energy drops to race. Most of your in-game quote-unquote events boil down to players being on their phone every 2 hours on the dot to blitz. Now, some of you may disagree with my comments, by the way, and I also will say I put at the top of this email, which is fairly lengthy to him, that obviously my comments come from a certain point of view, which is I spent a lot on the game. I was very hardcore. Everybody's got a different perspective, but this was my perspective of something I think is a problem with the game. Not everyone agrees, but to me, screen time's a huge problem. All right. And then I said, as you've added new game modes, you have not cycled out old game modes to keep screen time the same. Cosmic Crucible, Avengers Tower, and so on are good additions, but you've not cycled out old game modes or reduced their importance. Combined with increased events, these changes have increased the time requirements for all players. It doesn't have to be this way. Now, I use this is Swaga refers to Galaxy, Star Wars Galaxy Heroes. The reason I was using it as an example is because Archangel plays that game too. So I said it doesn't have to be this way. I'm currently more competitive right now in Swaga than I am in MSF, yet I spend less time playing at Swaga. In that game, almost all the raids auto-complete /sim. The Alliance wars are efficiency-based, so I don't need to be online at any specific time. As they added new game modes, they took rewards out of old ones like Arena, which means I could basically ignore those old game modes. There are only a few things I need to do each day in that game, which means I can spend more time doing what I find fun about that game, which is planning out and optimizing my roster. One thing your metrics don't capture is that most of the time players spend, quote, in, unquote, your game is actually spent outside of the game itself. They spend plenty of time thinking about their roster, planning their next moves, coordinating with their alliance mates, and watching videos. In a game like this, planning and thinking about the game is, quote, the fun. Pressing buttons and seeing stuff happen is not the main source of fun in a game like this. Obviously, it's from my perspective. Other people have a different perspective. This is my perspective of what I find fun to me and why I didn't like this game as much. based on some of the changes they made. I said another issue for your game is that people are no longer quarantined. When you're trapped at home, the high screen time for your game was less burdensome. Now it is intolerable. Once again, for me, if you love spending several hours a day playing Marvel Strike Force, more power to you. Okay, cost value proposition was my second one. The cost to play your game was at a high level, has radically increased since I started playing it in March 2020. When I started, players basically built one team for Arena and one team for Ultimates Raid, and those two teams often overlapped. For the cost of building 5 to 10 characters, a player could get the vast majority of rewards in the game. That's nothing else I've said on videos. I've said the same thing scopely in the past. I said it's understandable in a gacha game like this one that the cost will go up over time. What I mean there is not that like they charge more for the offers, but that if somebody starts playing a game that's already been out for 5 years, it's going to take them a lot longer to catch up, right, and collect all the characters. As I say, as players build up more resources and the game matures, but the rate of increase and the pace of change has increased too quickly and has altered the fundamental value proposition of the game, in my opinion. I think the game is just way too expensive right now. It's expensive in terms of the offers. Like the cost to Krakens and those people has gone way up. But and I say this as somebody who had been, spending quite a bit in this game for a long time, but also just for every player, really, whatever level you're at, you simply just don't have the resources to keep up with the treadmill that they have in this game. And I said it started with a great power leap last year that I called the Great Reset. Starting with Silver Surfer, you introduced characters that were so powerful that the legacy characters were irrelevant in comparison. Prior to that, power increases were much more gradual. Devaluing players' prior investments so quickly made people feel less invested in the game and more wary of investing further, although the power leap did create some, quote, winners as well, especially new players. My point is, if they made it so, everyone got Silver Surfer for free and it was the best character in the game, well, that helps a new player who just started, right? They got the best character in the game for free. But, so there were winners, but I think that making it so all the old stuff that had been built up by players was suddenly super devalued, I think ultimately was a bad thing for the game. And then I said over the last 6 months, you've increasingly incentivized players to build more teams and wider rosters. Raids now require 4 separate teams, one for each origin. Dark Dimension requires more characters. New events, including pop-up events like Pocket Dimension and Gambit Raid. And Nowhere Heist and other things, right, have quirky/unusual requirements and so on. I think it's indisputable that now they're basically making it so you have to build everything. I just think that's the direction the game is going. You basically have to build everything to keep up. And then here I say this change has been most dramatic in the context of legendary requirements. Each legendary used to require 5 characters at a particular gear level. Over time, you made legendaries require a prior legendary, which effectively meant that new legendaries required 10 characters. Now, a horseman requires 10 to 15 or more specific characters, along with a full roster that meets certain trait requirements, like villain, city, etc. Apocalypse will require 4 full teams of 5 in addition to all the teams/characters required to unlock the 4 horsemen, right? Because you need all 4 of the horsemen's teams, and then you need all the teams you needed to get the horsemen just to get one character, Apocalypse. So you could call that, you need at least these 20 characters, but really on top of that, you needed, 10 to 15 per horseman on top of these 20. So it's really, however you want to look at it, 60 to 80 characters you're going to need just to unlock Apocalypse. This is a dramatic change in a short period of time. Swaga's newest Galactic Legend, which is their top character, requires a total of 15 characters that you have to build. And that game is much older than MSF. You jumped from 10 characters to 20, plus 40 to 60 more for the Horsemen within the span of a year. This has hurt the game in at least a few ways. For one thing, players now feel like they have to build every character to keep up. Each patch has 4 plus new characters in addition, or 4 or more is what I meant there, new characters in addition to multiple reworked characters, which means players lack the resources to keep up without heavy spending. The cost to keep up with everything has gone up radically since I started playing. Everyone who plays this game understands that there's some level of cost associated with keeping up at whatever level of competition they're at. And I don't mean necessarily, guys, that means money, although that is certainly a component of it, right? If you're keeping up at a certain level, it's because, okay, I'm a dolphin, I'm a whale, I'm whatever. But there's also, even for free to play, there's a certain amount of effort, right, that comes into it. And you could get to a point where it's like, okay, free to play with a certain level of effort, I'm not able to get what I was able to get before, right? As they keep things unfarmable. But then I say, when you radically increase that cost, you alter the deal, so to speak, and so people like myself will just opt out. And that's basically what I've done. I told him at the beginning of the email, I've drastically cut down my spending. I've been winding down my level of activity in the game, etc. So I was basically telling him, Scopely, and I said, just, you tell Scopely, this is what my view of your game is. And then I said, also, by forcing us to build all characters, you reduce our agency over our own rosters. I didn't create this I never expected this email to become public. So I wrote this for them, not for you. But what I mean by agency is our control, our ability to make choices for ourselves. So I said, once again, I feel like you don't understand what makes games like this fun. Part of the fun for players is choosing how to build their rosters. Now that players have to build every team to keep up, they don't get to make savvy choices about what characters need to be big, what characters can be skipped, and so on. It ruins part of what was fun to players. Once again, in my opinion. And then I said here, my most popular monthly video was something called Top 10 to Invest in. The purpose of the video was to help players understand what characters are worth investing resources in for the long haul. I haven't made the video in months because the changes you've brought to the game have made it obsolete. Now most players are heavily invested into teams like Web Warriors and Young Avengers for Scourge, not because the characters are the best investment, but because the game is now all about horsemen. Every roster looks the same, and we're all chasing the same thing. Once again, in my opinion. But now if you look back at his comment, it makes sense, right? He's basically saying, Philosopher doesn't like he can't predict the future anymore with the game, and his joy's gone down. True. Right, he's referring to some of my commentary, and then it becomes even more apparent here. My other point in was lack of transparency. I say, at its core, Marvel Strike Force is a resource management game. Understandably, players want more information so they can better plan their resource spending, something I complain about on this channel constantly, right? Conversely, it's in your interest, meaning Scopely's interest, to keep players in the dark so they can't plan and feel enticed to spend. Something I've told you guys too. That's basically why they're doing this. There's always been a balance between giving information and keeping some information secret, but that balance has shifted. Players vaguely know that Apocalypse will come to the game, but until last week, this was about 2 weeks ago I wrote this, they didn't know that the Horsemen's teams would be needed to unlock him. They still don't know the star levels needed to unlock. They still don't know the star levels needed to unlock him. For Morgan Le Fay's event, they didn't know the required teams until the eve of the event. Players feel increasingly like they're flying blind. This is related to the prior point I made. Because you have changed the value proposition radically in recent months, without much notice, players feel like they have no idea how to plan for anything going forward. My recent advice, everyone, is just to hoard as much as possible and only spend as needed. That's all I can do because all of our understandings and expectations have been thrown out the window in recent months. It hasn't just ruined my content, it has ruined the fun for me and other players. All right, I'm not going to go through the rest of this, but this gives you the sense of why he had that commentary. I think it also gives you a sense of, once again, I'm just showing you exactly what I tell Scopely, and it's the same thing I tell you guys in my videos. And this is, sometimes people ask me, like, if you're not, like, if you're unhappy with the state of the game, why don't you quit? And I may at some point, but I'm doing this. I was trying to use my platform as a way of trying to move the ball forward for Scopely with Scopely. That was what I was trying to do. I thought that, by advocating and by explaining our views, or at least what I thought was the right thing for players, I would make a difference. I also thought by cutting down my spending and making a big show of that and showing the community that I am taking a step down in intensity in this game and in spending, that it would make a statement to Scopely and might make a difference to them. And I actually think Archangel has done all of us a favor, including me, by making it clear that it won't. Because if it was Cerebro still at the helm, I wouldn't have heard anything about this. I wouldn't have gotten this message, which basically the undertone of this message is tough cookies, Philosopher. The game's changed, and the game has changed, and we're going to have it so there's leaderboards, and you have to build everything all the time, and you don't know what's happening from month to month, and You just got to build everything, and the cost is radically gone up, and the screen time is high, and that's too bad. That's how it's going to be. It's too bad we're going to lose you, philosopher. So be it. Now, that was kind of always unstated when I would make comments. Like, I had told a lot of similar things to prior people at Scopely, multiple of them, some still with the company, some not. And nothing ever happened. And so I kind of got the gist after a while. It's like girl who doesn't return your phone calls. You kind of know, okay, I guess I'm dumped. I guess she's not interested anymore. It's kind of like that. Well, here I think just being upfront is better. So I just think it's better for players, better for me to know that Scopely doesn't give a crap and is going to just keep doing what they're doing. And I actually think it's better for players ultimately to have a community quote unquote manager who, instead of expertly managing us with BS, just tells us directly, like, yeah, you're wrong. Scopely's great, and I'm so excited about the Horseman, and we're just going to do it this way. And we'll see what comes of. Our complaints about this, BS with the milestones. They might roll it back. It is a big screw up on their part. It doesn't solve for me the underlying issues with the game that I've laid out. Now, I will say some of you, including on my own Discord, have said, I love the game. Philosopher, they just aren't doing it as well as I'd like, but I love building all these teams. I love Scourge. I love the whole system. I love these events every month. It's so great. Good for you. I mean, I don't, and I think they're bad for players, but I appreciate the fact that I'm not the only person whose views that matter. I am interested in your views, though. This was a big video in my view because I really want to come back and just make videos that were more, just get back to, okay, geez, now I finally have some time. I'm going to make some content. I'd rather not make it about this inside baseball stuff, but I'm interested in your thoughts. Do you agree with what I had to say? What do you think about Archangel? You think I'm wrong? You think Archangel is just, it's better to have like, a guy like Cerebro? I'm interested in your view. Obviously, we probably agree on the milestones because I just think they should give us all the milestones. But I think that Scopely's unlikely to do that because they're cheap and they care about money, and it's all about money. So interested in your views. Put your comments below, and please, you can go to my Discord. As you can tell, I actually made this video because of people on my Discord, so I'm interested in what you guys think. So go, if you like this video, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel. If you have comments, questions, cheers, jeers, happy, sad, angry, mad, put it below, or go to my Discord, which is linked below. You can also go to my Twitch stream. That is linked below too.